Welcome on into this week's episode of Digging Deeper. I'm Matt Cordy, joined here today by Mr. Encouragement. It's Pastor Gabe Kasper.
Hey, thanks, man. Glad to be here.
I don't know if that's the best nickname for you. We could probably workshop that a little bit.
There might be better ones. I feel like a pretty encouraging guy.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Maybe not as much as Barnabas here.
Who could be?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I don't know.
True story. In high school, I would go on mission trips to Mexico, and it's like this. There's like thousands of kids in this farmer's field in Baja, California. At any rate. And each day, someone from some group that was there would win the Barnabas Award. And if it was a girl, they called her the Barnababe. And if it was a dude, they called him the Barnadude. So
Barnadude?
Barnadudes and
Did you ever get it?
No, never. No, not once.
Right. Well,
so no Mr. Encouragement here.
My original intro was going to have you signing something, and then it was actually going to be you signing something saying that Pastor Marcus was the best athlete in the office.
Oh.
And I know that would really ground your gears, but
it sure does.
A little more of a visual gag. I know we have a lot of people that are more audio listeners only, so want to make sure we're not leaving them out here. But
fair enough.
The World Cup is upon us, and
it is.
I don't know. I mean, I love seeing those stories like you talked about. And my favorite one is the fans from Norway taking the highway, like just literally walking from Boston to Foxborough to get to the Boston, like where the Patriots play.
Yeah.
Which is like not close.
No.
And it's like even a decent drive away, but it's just Norway fans just like literally walking
they just
from the
walked.
town of Boston. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So just a lot of stories like that, and people
so
loving
good.
going to Walmart and stuff like that. But
it's so good.
Definitely a little funny. But it ended up being a good intro for the sermon. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, I know. First, you almost didn't put it in there, but
it's true. And it wasn't even in my notes because I did take it out.
Yeah,
it was in the unused notes that we normally go through, but I did it off the cuff. Couldn't help it. Had to be done.
Yes.
So yeah.
All right, but as we do get into your sermon here, you mentioned that you go through a lot of different resources and different commentaries beforehand. And oftentimes you even look at what other churches did for similar sermon series that might sort of overlap a little bit with what we're doing.
Yeah.
So within Acts here, you actually noticed a trend that when it comes to Acts 5, that there's a certain trend that you saw of who gets that sermon typically.
Yeah, so it's really funny. I mean, so first of all, there's like obviously commentaries on the book of Acts have to cover this text. That's going to be in there because it's in the book. But there's some like online sermon resources, articles I look up like that I will often look and be like, hey, what did they say about this particular text? And for every single one of those, they don't touch it at all, like none of them. So that one, I was like, well, that's weird. And then, there's a couple other churches that I follow that did series on the book of Acts within the last, 10 years or whatever. And I was like, oh man, I wonder, what they do with it. And so I pulled it up. Every single one of them has the youth pastor do it. So like whoever the main person is at that church, like punts on this one and gives it to someone else. So yeah, it's sort of a funny thing that way, but yeah.
Who assigned the sermons for this sermon series? Was it Pastor
this
Marcus?
was Marcus, Pastor Marcus. So I actually leaned over.
That's what you get for not doing it yourself there, Pastor Gabe.
Indeed. I actually leaned over and I was like, thanks for giving me this one. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, he did give himself the one of the gospel on trial, so I guess that worked out.
That's true.
In the end there for him.
Yep.
So we talked about your opening for the sermon. You talked about how uncomfortable this story can actually be and why it's often punted to someone that may not want it.
Yep.
And it's one that I often don't even remember like reading through. So it's like just definitely a interesting story in general there. But you make a note here that the book of Acts is dealing with reality.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things, this will probably come up. This is a theme in my head lately is because sometimes I think about like, well, what is the Bible? What is it to be a pastor? Like, and one of the things I think it is like helping us see reality. I think we oftentimes, we try to avoid reality, and we actually run into problems by avoiding reality. And so we put blinders on, we narrate the world a particular way so we don't have to see things, we don't have to deal with things. We try to sugarcoat things, whitewash things, that sort of deal. And the Bible is just sort of unapologetic about presenting reality. And I think there's that matters. Like that's like what we need to do. And so, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if the book of Acts was just like, and the history of the church was just this loving, Jesus-centered community that spread around the world and everyone came together in global communion and peace and harmony. Like, yeah, that'd be great. But like, that isn't what happened. Like, this is what
Yeah.
happened is you had people kind of free riding within the community, lying and paying a price for it. And like, yeah, does that price seem harsh to us in the modern world? Sure. But that's what happened. So we got to deal with it, you know? And I think that's just but I guess I say all that, like, I think that's the point of the Bible and Christianity writ large is like, I don't want to shy away from the hard parts of reality. I don't want to pretend that they're not there. I think like we want to face all that's there, good, bad, and ugly. And yeah.
And I think it's important to like address it and
Yep.
sort of talk about those things as well. So I appreciate us not skipping over it here within this sermon series. And I know we had even talked about potentially doing all the book of Acts this summer, but it was decided by you and the other pastors that maybe we should like actually like hunker down here and like actually go through it piece by piece and like split it up between a couple different series. So I think that sort of gave room for being able to talk about
to go
this.
lean into this. Yeah, absolutely.
So next up here, you have a quote about how in Christianity, everything matters. And that's actually a good thing.
Yeah. And so this then ties into that, like, facing reality thing, right? So Marilyn Robinson is an author I like a lot. She wrote, I think her biggest book is Gilead, which is one of my favorite books by her. I'm actually reading another book by her right now called Lila, which is the name of my daughter.
Yeah.
But also the name of one of the characters in Gilead. So it's kind of backstory to that. Any rate, but Marilyn Robinson, very successful author and is a Christian. And I think her most recent book is called Reading Genesis. And when she released it like a year or so, maybe 18 months ago or so, she was interviewed on the New York Times, and you know they're talking to her about writing a book on reading Genesis, like that's what it's about, and about her faith. And you know, New York Times is always trying to like figure out what that means and sort of squeamish about it. And so they ask her like, hey, you know, how does faith shape your work as a writer? And if you didn't have this faith, you know, what do you think would be missing in your writing? And Marilyn Robinson says this. She says, I think one of the most important aspects of thinking religiously is the assumption is that everything matters. Okay, one of the most important aspects of thinking religiously is the assumption that everything matters. That's an enormously important thing for a writer to consider. But the way that Christianity is, it sees at the scale of the minute and it sees at the scale of the cosmic. And the cosmic, the grandeur of it all, does not diminish the grandeur of the very small, the very detailed, the very humble, to use a biblical word. I would feel the world was impoverished in my perception of it if I did not see how it's situated in this realm of meaning. And so, you know, I originally thought like, man, it'd be cool to tie that into the story of Ananias and Sapphira, because we can look and say like, all right, they told one lie and they died. Right. But it's like, we do see this in the Bible. We see this, like, God cares about everything. Every aspect of our life, every aspect of his creation, every aspect of the world matters. Every part of it. Like that is, and so it's like, I mean, and I think that makes sense of, we might say even our sin in general, where someone may be like, well, you know, like I lied a little bit, or I just had a bit of gossip, or I just, you know, had a lustful thought, whatever. And we think like, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. But actually the biblical witness is, it's all a big deal. It all actually matters. Which on the one hand is scary, like if you don't get grace, and it can be like, geez, like chill out, God. But on the other hand, it's like your life matters, your choices matter.
It gives
what
you
do,
purpose.
it gives you purpose. Yeah, exactly. Like it imbues your life with an inherent meaning to it, and I think it's a great gift that God has given us. So
I mean, you just think about like the age-old existential question, like what is the meaning of life? Like what is my purpose? And like religion, and specifically Christianity, definitely gives you that purpose. And I like how she put it there in a lot of different ways, that both the minute and the grandeur.
That's
like,
right.
Both of it matters, and it gives you a meaning in your life. So I appreciate that.
Well, and that's where like, even, you know, we were talking today as a staff where we were talking about someone we know who, you know, really loves their kids. Right. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, people should love their kids. Like, is that really that much of a heroic moral deed to do that? But it's like, I mean, on the one hand, for some people it is. And then on the other hand, like, Yeah, like that really matters. Like how you do that matters,
Yeah.
right? So things that we even take for granted are the sort of things that God has imbued with meaning and with sort of sacred purpose in them.
All right. Well, one of my favorite parts about doing Digging Deeper is when you send your notes to me on a Friday afternoon and I get to look through them. And sometimes you have stories in there that just, I don't know. I try to piece them together and figure out, okay, where in this sermon might have this gone? Is this an intro? Is this something to back up some other point you're trying to make?
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have any idea. And right here is one of these. Actually, it's sort of a half-baked story. You almost wrote an intro to this story, and then, I don't know, probably decided I'm not going to go this direction. But go ahead and tell us about what you were doing here.
Yeah. So the intro I wrote is it was about my roommate from college and seminary. His name's Paul. He married actually my wife Melissa's roommate, Laura. They met at our wedding. Kind of amazing. He was an usher at our wedding. She was a bridesmaid. Adorable, Story writes itself. And he's a pastor as well. And so we actually got to see them this last week in Wisconsin.
Nice.
And so that was like the intro. That's all you got. But as he and I were talking, we're catching up, and he likes to run a lot. He's been doing triathlons, that sort of thing. But he's like, yeah, I can't really run like right now. He's like, and I don't know if I will ever again. He's really kind of hurt his knee. And he's like, so I'm doing a lot of biking, a lot of swimming. But he's like, man, I preach about this all the time, that like there will come a day for each one of us when we don't get to serve God the way we want to, and we'll have to serve God the way we have to. And he's like, and maybe that day, as far as running goes for me, is coming sooner than I would want it to, but this is a necessary limit that's been placed on me.
Yeah.
And so how do I serve God within this limit that I find myself in? He's a much better pastor than I am. And
I wasn't going to say it.
I will. Seriously. And, but I was like, yeah, man, like it's a good insight. Right. And I was thinking about that in relation. So this was one of those where I was like, I'm going to write the story and see if it fits. And then I was like, I'm just not going to. Yeah. But I was thinking about it in relation to Ananias and Sapphira, because like what they're trying to do is to transgress their limits. They're trying to serve God in a way that was not intended for them to serve God. Right. And so that's because, and I mentioned this in the sermon, like if they had said, hey, we sold our house, here's 5% of the profits, or here's up $100, whatever.
Right.
They could have done whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And done it within their limits. That would have been great. But instead, it's like my buddy Paul, it'd be like if he kept trying to run on his bad knee, man, he's not using the gifts he has in the right way. Yeah. Right. And so that's what I was leaning towards getting into. But
okay. See why it didn't fit, but I don't know. I have a feeling that we might be hearing that again in a future sermon.
Show up. So it might show up. Yeah.
We'll earmark that one.
Yep.
All right. So within the sermon this past Sunday, you brought in context to the passage, which I think is actually pretty important.
Yeah.
Just where we left off the previous Sunday, end of Acts chapter 4, gives you a lot of just knowledge going into sort of comparing the way that Barnabas did it versus Ananias and Sapphira. So you even actually have more commentary here about the prior, actually really about how people would have read this within like the early manuscripts.
Yeah. So the earliest manuscripts we have of the New Testament texts, they're not going to have, they do not have chapters and verses, right? Mm-hmm. And certainly the original manuscript of Acts wouldn't have had chapters and verses, right? So when we talk about scripture being inspired or infallible, that sort of thing, like that doesn't include the chapter breakdowns or the headings or the verse numbers, right? Like those are things we added later to help us find things, to be honest, right? So we can say, yeah, it's in the Gospel of John. Just flip around there and find. It's like, no, we can say it's John 3:16. We can all get at the same spot, right? But those are all technologies we added to the Bible that like were not part of the earliest manuscripts and not certainly part of the original manuscript, which matters because we take a text where we have a division in our Bible where Acts 4 ends and Acts 5 begins. Whereas in the original manuscript or the earliest manuscripts, you don't have the chapter break. You're just reading. And so if you're looking for a transition, words like, and I mentioned this in the sermon, a word like the word de, which is a conjunction that highlights a transition and a contrasting transition, plays a super important role, right? So if you're reading, you're not like, for us, the contrast seems a little bit easier because we go from one chapter to another. To an original reader or an early reader of the book of Acts, like that term de is super important for them to be like, oh man, we're comparing these two things, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to get into that. And so I trimmed some of that off because it's just a little bit unnecessary, but now you know.
Yeah, it adds into how much like this is connected to that previous chapter.
Yep.
Because like sort of just constructed that way now, but back then it's really just flowing together that way.
Exactly.
So, makes sense.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have a quote here, which you actually didn't give any credit to within your notes here. So just based on me reading it, if I had to guess, it's Freya India. Also, just because you use a lot of Freya nowadays.
Yep.
So that's my guess. I don't know if that's true or not. Is it?
You ready? It is. You nailed it,
yes.
Matt. You win.
I mean,
you win the
it was a
award.
safe bet. Like if I was like probability-wise, like
very high.
Probably the leader in the clubhouse there. But
it's like her or Freddie DeBoer right now. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm proud of myself for getting that one.
Dude,
but just based on a couple of things that were said in here, I'm like, this sounds like Freya.
It's up to
She's
her alley,
often
right?
talking about her generation and like how like it's affected by different things within culture. So
totally
thought it sounded like her, and
yeah,
there we go.
Here you are.
But anyways, we'll have you read this here, but she does say a lot about how Christianity, especially through social media, has been commodified now.
Yeah. So it's interesting. She has an article called "The Commodification of Christianity." It's quite good, in which now it's tricky. She's wrestling with in the article. And she herself, I don't think would yet call herself a Christian. She is clear in the article that it's something she's exploring.
Sure.
And she's going to church. So she's like trying to figure it out. But she didn't grow up with it. Doesn't really, so she's trying to figure it out. But point being is she's noticed as she's been exploring it, like the sort of gamification and commodification of Christianity. So that's like Bible apps and reading plans and like, did you get your streak on the Bible app today? You only have to pray. Just spend 1 minute with God. Here's the easiest way to do it. And so the way in which like it's the Marshall McLuhan. She doesn't quote him, but the medium is the message, right? So when our engagement with God comes through this, and again, there's things that are helpful, I think, and it's not an all or nothing, and she would agree with that. But like, it sort of reduces Christianity, religion, spirituality, relationship with God. It reduces it to a commodity for me to consume rather than a relationship that I'm actually walking in, right?
Yeah.
So this is what she said. All of this, the commodification and the gamification and the online communities, ultimately leaves us with a shallow faith. If you teach a generation Christianity through TikToks and Instagram reels, don't be surprised if their version of belief has nothing to do with virtue, with how they actually live their lives, and everything to do with what they post, how they label themselves online, what's on their story. Don't be surprised if Christianity becomes nothing but a weapon in the culture war, a cross emoji in a bio. If companies focus on expanding their customer base instead of changing hearts and souls, that's what we'll get. Customers. Consumers who want to pick and choose, browse and shop, personalize and pray their own way. Deep down, I'm not convinced that's what my generation even wants. Not really. If you're young and you weren't raised religious and you find yourself drawn to faith, surely it has to be because it's different, because it's a break from ads and notifications and discount codes. For the first time in our lives, let us relate to something not as a consumer. Please, I connect with everything this way, not God too. And I think there's a lot to that. And again, like there's a tension to be managed on this, but like, and this is where and you and I have talked about this, I think, but like, I even wrestle with us doing this right now, right?
Yeah.
To be super meta about it, of like, man, how much do we do online? How much do we just say, we're just not going to play that game because like faith and our walk with God and with one another is just, I want it to be deeper than a YouTube video. Yeah. And at the same time, I know people engage on stuff here, and I've been helped by YouTube videos, right? So it's like, but it's tricky. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where I think we just have to be careful, and like the church writ large, like has to be careful about how we treat people. We're not trying to treat them as, hey, come consume what we're putting out there so that we can sell ad revenue or get more people in the church. It's trying to reach people so that we can tell them about Jesus and help them grow their faith and just walk with them in that journey that they're on as well. Yep. And I think that's the balance, but it's not always easy to do. And sometimes that's what people are looking for, because that's just what they're, like Freya said, that's how she consumes everything, is as a consumer. Like it's in the name already. But if there's a way that we could do that differently, I think that's always something we're looking for too.
Well, I think, and that's right. I think, and it's interesting too, in this same article, she talks about how, she has a hard time, like, there'll just be Sundays because she didn't grow up in church. It's not a habit for her. She's like, she doesn't really want to go. And she's just like, I'll tell myself like, oh yeah, well, I can just live stream it later. Right. Or I can just listen to the sermon later while I'm doing laundry.
Right.
And it's like, and again, you can do that. Like that's better than not.
Right.
But if that's the whole substance of what you're doing, man, it's like you're missing something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just at that point, it's sort of like a show you're watching.
It's a show,
like
right?
That. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just add it into your routine, but not necessarily affecting your relationship of like building a relationship with God, I suppose.
Right.
So,
right.
and with other people
and with others
in the faith. So,
yep.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. But
Yep.
always appreciate what our friend Freya has to say there.
Yeah.
So
this may find its way into a sermon. I knew I wanted to use it, and I was like, I'm gonna have to force it. So just be forewarned, dear listener, it may find its way into one in a later date.
Wouldn't be surprised at that at all.
Nope.
All right. On Sunday, you talked about how we're all hypocrites. You, me, hypocrite.
Yep. Your mom.
Yep. Sorry, Cindy.
Sorry.
She might be listening.
Oh, she
to this
does
later,
listen.
so...
Cindy, that was like a generic your mom, anyone's mom, not
Yes.
Matt, my mom as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Deb.
Sorry, Deb.
Okay.
All right. But the question is, like, what do we actually do with that? The fact that we're all hypocrites.
Right. So that's where, I ended up closing down my sermon, where the solution to hypocrisy is not to pretend you're not one, but it's just to come honest. Right. And I think that's one of the challenging things that maybe people find with Christianity is like, I think sometimes the critique is like, oh, it's such a low view of humanity, or like my friend Dave Zoll, he says like low anthropology, right? But like, yeah, we do have a low anthropology in a way, right? I mean, like on the one hand, of course, we're made in God's image, and every human being is inherently valued, and we're people that Jesus died for, and so like there's a lot of dignity and worth in Christianity. But the point is like, it's because we mess stuff up a lot, and like we're just, again, this goes back to that reality thing of like so much of Christianity is like trying to just help people see reality, help myself see reality, because I'm so prone to being like, well, I'm not really a hypocrite. I'm always consistent. I have perfect integrity. And it's like, dude, no, I don't. Like, would that I did, but I don't. And so like to have that space to come honest, that's what we're called to, I think, is just confess. And then we receive grace. That's where the grace is found, is stop pretending, come honest, receive grace.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to original sin and just how like no one had to teach me how to be a hypocrite. Like I didn't learn that from Cindy.
Exactly. You certainly would.
But like, I mean, it just comes naturally to us. And I think it's just the fact that we all are hypocrites, and that the way that we can address that is through confession. I liked how you tied that in there as well.
Thanks. Do you like the balloon? How'd you feel about the balloon?
I liked it. I'm sure the kids loved it.
The youths loved it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, fellow youths.
I was a little nervous with the object lesson. But
you're leaning in. That's good.
Leaning in, doing what I can.
And I think people will remember that. That's the thing. It's like,
it's true.
A great sermon, like you'll remember it for a long time, but people are never going to forget the balloon.
The balloon. That'll always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Okay.
All right. People actually came up to you after your sermon and had some questions about verse 13 here, where it talks about how none of the rest joined them. And this is talking with Peter and them. And it said that none came and joined them even with everything that was happening. So what's actually happening, and what's that referring to there?
So verse 13 occurs in this sort of summary paragraph in Acts 5. And it's while it says Peter and the apostles, they go to Solomon's portico, which was this kind of like eastern colonnade outside of the temple, just outside the temple, to the east of the temple. And they're there doing ministry. And then it says this line, like, none of the rest dared join them, but the people held them in high esteem. And so the question is like, that feels like a random sentence. Like, why does it, who are the rest, and why won't they join the apostles? Right. So the rest, the assumption is, at least according to most commentaries that I've read, the rest would be other Christians that were around at that time. And so these other Christians who like trust in what the apostles are proclaiming in the gospel, believe in Jesus, but they don't want to hang out with them at this time. So then the question is, why?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where it's interesting. Two scholars I read had two different opinions on this. So, dear listener, the choice is yours. I'll give you my leaning in a second here. But the first is that people didn't join them because after Ananias and Sapphira, because this comes on the heels of them dying, after Ananias and Sapphira die, people are kind of freaked out. Like they're like, dude, Peter's got some juice. Like these guys, like something is going on here.
The fear of God was putting them.
Literally, right? And it is made clear in that text that people are afraid of like Peter. like it's like, oh gosh, God's power is here in some profound ways that are kind of scary. Yeah. And so that's option one, is that's the case. The other option is that a few verses before this, Peter and I think it's John are out preaching, and the Sanhedrin says, which is the Jewish ruling council, says like, hey, you can't preach about Jesus near the temple anymore. You got to stop doing this. And so the theory is that people didn't join Peter and the apostles near the temple when they're preaching about Jesus because the Sanhedrin forbade it, and they don't want to get into trouble with the authorities.
Got it. Okay.
I am inclined, for what it's worth. What are you inclined with? What do you want to go with, Matt?
I mean, before hearing the second explanation, the first was the one that I was already thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Because I mean, that just from the context I had already known, that's sort of where my head was going. But the second one also could make some sense, but the first one made the most logic to me at the initial jump there.
And it could be that.
Yeah.
Here's the only thing, though, that'll throw a little wrinkle, is actually then the next section that happens is the apostles are arrested by the Sanhedrin. And so part of me says, like, I think Luke is trying to bridge the gap between what's happened into what's going to happen next. So that's where I'm more inclined to think it's people are just freaked out and they don't want to get arrested as opposed to being afraid of the apostles. But tough to say.
Yeah.
It could go either way. It really
that also
could.
makes sense there too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I don't think either one is necessarily like a faulty logic, although I suppose if they are afraid of the apostles, it's not necessarily a good thing, but also understandable. Just, I mean, they already knew Peter had so much power. They wanted to have his shadow touch them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, if you're friends with Sapphira and you're like, oh, she just died. Like, so, I mean, it'd be also pretty scary there too.
Right.
So,
for sure. Yeah. Cuts either way.
Yeah. All right. We're talking about hypocrisy. And in fact, you almost brought in a quote here from this really well-known teacher that was named Jesus of Nazareth.
Nailed it, buddy. How did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I had to really dig for that one. But Jesus actually has something to say about hypocrites. He talks about this more than once, actually pretty often in the Gospels there. And specifically, you were going to go into Mark 7.
Yeah, so in Mark 7, Jesus critiquing the Pharisees, and this is what he says at verse 6. He says, and he said to them, Pharisees, well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men. And so it's interesting, in calling the Pharisees hypocrites, he explains how they've become that, right? And how does Jesus define what they've done? Is they've elevated the law of man over and above the laws of God, right? And so they're claiming to be godly, but they're actually living for a man-made law. And this actually, then we can think about it. This is how hypocrisy works, right? So you take Ananias and Sapphira, they're claiming to be godly, but the law they're living for is looking like the most generous, if you will, right? Is saying like, I want to be held. So this is, the early church is a community that valued radical generosity. Well, we want to be held in high esteem in this community. Man-made, how do we do that? Generosity. Man-made law is how we're going to do it, right? But then it's the same thing with any of us, where it's like, hey, I'm a Christian, so I believe in a particular sexual ethic. But when it's convenient for me to not embrace that, so I look better in front of other people, then I'm going to do that. Right? Or, I mean, there's a million ways this can flesh itself out, but that is the root of hypocrisy. Is it says, instead of living for God's law, I'm going to live for man's law at some level. Right? I mean, generosity is a good one too. Even it's like money, where it's like, hey, God commands us to be generous. I'm going to be a person who prioritizes my finances in such a way that I can be generous. And for the sake of the gospel, I'm going to do these things. And then my neighbor got a really nice car, and I kind of want a really nice car, and so I'm going to instead choose to use my money that way instead of doing it to feed the hungry, right? Like, It's like this is what we do is we live for man-made laws instead of the law of God, and that's what turns us into hypocrites.
Yeah. Wise words from a wise man.
It's true.
And God.
Yeah. Well, me or the Lord?
Oh, the Lord.
The Lord. Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, it's okay. He knows more than me.
Yeah. Good note to end on right there.
One of the few. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for this segment of Digging Deeper. Amy and Nate will be coming up on the other side of this. And then coming up next week, it'll be the gospel arrested. You already teased it a little bit. But, of course, we got Pastor Marcus to come in and read the Miranda rights to us all. And I think it'll be a fun one going through the second part of Acts 5 here. Acts 5, 17 through 42. So go ahead and head there if you want to get a jump start on that. But that's it for this segment. Make sure to stay around for Amy and Nate.
Later, skaters.
Hi, everyone. This week we're talking about Pastor Gabe's sermon regarding the gospel being tested. And that's such a crazy story to think of Ananias and how he was like seeing all of these wonders being done through Peter and the others, and how he just basically lied to his face and obviously wasn't afraid. And his wife was the same way. Yeah. Just how crazy that was.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were saying, I mean, the Spirit was just moving so powerfully at that time. And it's just kind of like, if you were seeing people getting the lame walking and things like that, like,
Yeah. Things would change a little bit, right?
Next time.
Right. Yeah.
So I wrote a song called Only One, and it's the first verse is, only you can do what is impossible. You are unstoppable. And this is just about God being the one pulling us through. And
When I especially love how he says, see this, or the lyrics say, see this heart made new. This idea that only the gospel can transform our hearts, which has been part of this whole series. Yeah.
Yeah. As so the cool. Apostles are going out.
Yeah.
Cool. Only you can do what is impossible. You are unstoppable. See this heart made new. History shelves are full of stories just like my own. Who else could say? Who has conquered sin and grave? There is one, only one. He is Lord, Lord of all. There is one, only one, who breaks as iron chains. Christ Jesus, King of kings.
Thanks again, Amy and Nate. Always love hearing from you guys, and especially hearing about Only One. And I think that's an appropriate song to pick for this past week. One that's near and dear to our hearts here at Digging Deeper as the intro and outro song. But a good reminder that there's only one gospel, and it's the only way. The only way. It's as simple as that. And appreciate hearing that. Coming up ahead next week will be the gospel arrested, and that'll be Pastor Marcus helping wrap up Acts chapter 5. We'll be looking at verses 17 through 42. So Pastor Marcus will be here on Digging Deeper next week as well. So thank you again for joining us this week on Digging Deeper. Have a blessed rest of your week.